everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. I've come on today to show you how I made these pretty little patchwork pages using the Bits and Pieces kits. Now, Rennie has released a couple more kits, which is mushrooms and flower elements, and of course they all mix and match together with the previous Bits and Pieces kits. So you can make these patchwork pages using just one, or you can mix all the kits together, which I think is really cool. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that I've made these patchwork pages today. This one here I've sewn in between all of the individual pieces, which I think looks quite cool. But then on this one here, I wanted to keep it a little bit more masculine looking, so I've just gone in using a black Sharpie and put some scribbly black lines where the pieces join. I've also made a really cheaty, easy one using this piece here. This image is actually from one of Tracy Fox's kits, Birth Flower Months, or Birth Month Flowers I think it's called. So to begin with, I've got here, these are from Bits and Pieces kit 4, and I've cut all of my bits and pieces out. This is from the Flowers and Mushrooms kit, and this was from the kit 3, so I've just got them kept separately. That's how I like to use it. I'm going to work with this image here. On the screen it looks quite blue, but it's actually a purpley image, so I'm going to use that one today, and I'm going to use some bits from both of the kit 3 and kit 4. Now for my patchwork base, I'm using one of these leftover labels. When I print out my postage labels, they print 4 to a sheet, and sometimes I'm left with, an odd number of labels, and I can't reuse them with the printing program. So I'm going to use one of these. I'm actually going to peel it off my sheet and turn it upside down so the sticky side is facing up. Now you of course can just use glue or double-sided tape or whatever you like for this project, but I'm just using up some of these labels. And to begin with, I've selected an image, and I'm going to put the image right, sort of eyeballing it in the middle of my sticky piece of paper here. Now it doesn't matter if it's not exactly in the middle because we're going to be trimming it at the end. And then I'm just going to pick from my boxes here and build my patchwork around my image. So when I pick a piece, I sort of line it up against the edge of my image. Because my paper's sticky, it sometimes grabs before I'm ready for it. And then I just line those up and press it down. Everything that's overhanging, that doesn't bother me. I'll cut that off afterwards. And I don't really work in any particular fashion. I just sort of pick bits up and put them down where I like them. Now this one's quite dark, so I don't want to have too much of this showing. So just line that up against those other two pieces. That one jumped out, so that one must want to be used. Maybe we'll put that one over here. And I just keep going all the way around until I've filled up all of the sticky bits. Once I have all of my sticker sheet covered, I'm then going to go around and cut off all of the extra bits that I can keep for other projects. Now I'm not worried that the edges aren't straight at the moment. I'll tidy those up in a moment, and then I'll just go through and decide which bits I'm going to keep and which bits I'm happy to let go. So then I'll just bring in my paper trimmer and trim off the edges and make sure everything's nice and straight. So now I have all my edges trimmed up, and that piece is ready to move on to the next step. So you could choose to go and stitch all the way around the edges. When I stitch it, I basically work on my longest straight lines first, and then I'll go back in and stitch all the shorter lines afterwards. So you end up with this sort of look when they're stitched. So I've got these long lines here that I've stitched first, and then you can just go in and cut the little threads and that sort of thing off afterwards. So these two were created in a very similar fashion. I laid the image down first, and then I just went over and started popping pieces down. The only difference is I've allowed some pieces to overlap onto other pieces, just for a little bit of a different look there. So I've got another label here, and I'm just going to show you a different way you might like to build your patchworks. This will be my focal image, but I'm going to use this at the end rather than at the beginning. And I'm going to stick with sort of greenish tones this time. And I'm just going to start, I'll put this one down quite accurately to begin with. I say, and then I don't. Luckily with these labels I can usually peel it off again. So I just want it to be fairly square. It doesn't matter if it's not, because we can always straighten it up at the end. Okay, so I've just popped that one down to begin with, and then I'm just going to build around. I know I'm going to have a blank spot in the middle for the label, for the image, but I'm just going to start building around where I think I need to be. So I'm fairly sure now that my image is going to be able to sit in the middle there and cover up that blank spot. So I'm just going to cut off these extra large bits that I can use again. Pop those back into my tray. And then I'm just going to decide where I want my image. So I think I want it there. I know I'm going to lose all of that there, but that doesn't really bother me. So I think I'll pop that down there. I'm just going to pop some glue . So now I'll come back with my paper trimmer, and using this straight edge as a guide, I'm just going to trim off the edge to try and get it straight to begin with. Yep, pretty happy with that. So once I'm happy with this straight line, I can use this straight edge to straighten up everything else. So there we go. Now I've got another little patchwork page ready to go. Now this gap here is larger than that gap, so if that bothers you, you could just trim down a little more. So something a bit more like that. And then there's another little patchwork page ready to be stitched around or added into your journal, however you like. You could also cut it into a tag shape. So this one here was super quick and easy to make and a little bit cheaty. So I'll show you how I created that one. Now what I've got here is just a page from the Kit 4, and I'm just going to cut a section straight up here from this straight line. Pop that one aside for later. And I've just picked this image. This is from Tracy's Birth Flower kit, and I just think the colours match quite well, so I've just selected that one for this. I'm just going to roughly trim off my white edges. So I want to mute this a little bit and have it sort of push back further into the background, so I'm just going to get a little bit of gesso. And I've got here a little brayer, just a small rubber brayer. I'm just going to pop some gesso on here, and then I'm going to roll a little bit off because I don't want it to completely block out everything. And I'm going to start right in the middle because my image is going to be there, so if it's a bit too heavy, it doesn't matter if it's in the middle to begin with. And then I'm just going to run the brayer over just to get a little bit of coverage on that background, just muting everything down. And then on these two heavy dark lines, I'm just going to go in and pop a little bit of extra gesso on those with my finger. And then again, just rub over with the brayer. So I know I want my image to be roughly in the middle there. And I've got here a couple of pieces of chipboard. Now I'm going to mount my images onto chipboard because I really like the edge that I get from this white chipboard, and it distresses really nicely. So I don't even need to make sure that's straight because I'm going to heavily distress it. there. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and really distress the edge of this chipboard. Make sure my image still fits there, which it does, and then I'm just going to attach that with some glue. Just going to bring in my paper trimmer because I want to trim this a little bit more accurately. And I'm going to trim it off on this line here. Just tidy up my other edges and make sure it's all straight. Alright, so I'm happy with this size of this one now, and that'll layer on there quite nicely. But I'm just going to take this one to my sewing machine and I'm just going to pop some stitching around the edge. So I've just got some rough stitching around there and I'm just going to snip off some of my threads. So I've got another piece of chipboard here and I'm just going to trim that down to suit this piece. And then I'm just going to heavily distress the edges of this one as well. So that still fits on there nicely. Just going to glue that down. Then I'm just going to layer this piece on top again with some glue. Now you could add some cheesecloth or other bits and pieces sticking out from under it. You add as much detail as you like. Then I'm just going to go back in with a little bit of gesso and blend that line out a bit more. There we go, and now that's another patchwork topper that I could use on a journal or pop on the front of a card or whatever. So the kit makes it really easy to just work in one colour, but you can of course mix the colours and get some really pretty outcomes by just selecting a few colours. When I work with multiple colours, I like to make sure that I use the same colour at least 3 times on my project. So I've got 3 pink, 3 different green, 3 different blue, and then I basically just filled in the little gaps with neutrals. One of the other things I really love about this kit is its cohesiveness to other images. So these, as I mentioned earlier, are from one of Tracy Fox's kits. I've got lots of digital kits from other creators as well. So having the kits in such a wide variety of colours means I can pick up some of my other favourite digitals and mix and match them, and they all work cohesively together. So I hope you enjoyed that and found it easy enough to follow along with. I just love how easy these kits are to work with, and I've got so many more ideas. I'll leave links in the description box below to the kits that I've used today and also a link to Tracy's kits. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye!